I'm not sure if marriage is the right thing." Emma was stunned when she heard Nathan say that. They met at a friend's birthday party, bonding over poorly mixed cocktails and nostalgic songs. A casual conversation soon revealed their shared love for sci-fi movies, spontaneous travel, and street food. What started as a simple night turned into a 5-year relationship. Their relationship progressed steadily through important milestones. After 2 years of dating, they decided to move in together, settling into a small but cozy apartment in the heart of the city. 2 years later, they adopted a cat named Mochi, a tiny creature they both considered an inseparable part of their little family. Last summer, during a quiet picnic on their favorite hilltop, Nathan nervously pulled out a ring and asked, "Do you want to walk this journey with me?" It wasn't a grand proposal, but for Emma, it was perfect. Without hesitation, Emma said yes. They set their wedding for June and began planning, with Emma handling the details while Nathan passively agreed. She assumed he simply didn't care about the specifics. As long as they were getting married, nothing else mattered. What she didn't realize was that beneath his silence, doubts were already growing. At first, Emma didn't pay much attention to Nathan's silence. She was busy planning the wedding, choosing the venue, trying on dresses, booking the caterer, everything necessary to turn their big day into a perfect memory. But over time, Nathan's indifference became more than just nodding along to everything she suggested. He started avoiding wedding discussions, taking longer to reply to her messages when she sent him lists of vendors or decoration ideas. When Emma asked for his opinion on the wedding menu, his response was nothing more than a half-hearted, "Whatever you choose." She told herself it was nothing to worry about. Maybe he just trusted her taste and preferred to let her make the decisions. But then other changes started to appear. Nathan began spending more time with his new group of co-workers, especially Evan, a colleague from his project team. They often went out for drinks after work, watched games on the weekends, and sometimes Nathan would come home late without informing her. Emma tried not to let it bother her. She knew he was under a lot of pressure at work, and she didn't want to be the clingy girlfriend who constantly questioned his whereabouts. But then, one evening, when she suggested they finalize the guest list together, Nathan sighed and said, "Do we really need to invite so many people? It feels like a waste of money." Emma froze. This wasn't the first time Nathan had brought up concerns about wedding expenses. In fact, he had been expressing discomfort about the costs for quite some time. "I know weddings are expensive, but this is our big day. Don't you want it to be special too?" she asked gently. But Nathan just shrugged, avoiding an argument. Instead, he simply muttered, "I'm just wondering if it's even worth it." For the first time, a deep sense of unease crept into Emma's heart. Nathan wasn't just concerned about the cost. Something bigger, something deeper, was making him hesitant. But at that moment, she had no idea that these small signs were only the beginning of a much more painful truth. Emma's doubts grew stronger as Nathan became increasingly distant. Every time she tried to create moments for them to reconnect, a cozy movie night at home, a romantic dinner just for the two of them, he seemed distracted, as if his mind was somewhere else. Her messages about choosing wedding songs or cake tastings were met with short, indifferent replies like "whatever" or "you pick." Lena, Emma's best friend, noticed the shift. One Friday night, she suggested that Emma plan a special date night with Nathan to see if they could rekindle their closeness. Emma agreed and put together the perfect evening. She made reservations at a romantic Italian restaurant, picked out a dress she knew Nathan liked, and even stocked his favorite drink in the fridge for when they got home. But that night turned out to be a disaster. Nathan was barely present throughout dinner, his attention constantly shifting to his phone. When Emma tried to bring up their honeymoon plans, he fell silent for a long moment before finally saying something that made her heart stop. "I'm not sure if I'm ready for all of this." Emma's grip on her fork tightened. She forced herself to stay calm. "What do you mean?" Nathan took a sip of his wine, avoiding her gaze. "I don't know. It just feels like everything is happening too fast. We've been together for so long, but I'm not sure if marriage is the right thing." It was as if someone had knocked the air out of her lungs. 5 years together, 8 months engaged, and now he was saying he wasn't sure. Swallowing the lump in her throat, she asked him why he felt this way. Nathan hesitated before mentioning his conversations with Evan, his new friend, who had filled his head with doubts about marriage, about how it changes everything, about how married men often regret losing their freedom. He also referenced Evan's brother's messy divorce as an example. The conversation quickly escalated into an argument. Emma tried to reason with him, to remind him that not all marriages end in disaster, that their love wasn't something so fragile that it could be shaken by someone else's fears. But Nathan simply shook his head and said he needed time to think. The night ended in heavy silence. When they got home, Nathan slept on the couch while Emma cried herself to sleep in their bedroom. But the biggest shock was yet to come. The next morning, as Emma was still trying to process everything, her phone buzzed with a message from Lucas, one of Nathan's co-workers, and also a mutual friend of both of them. "Emma, are you okay? Things got a little tense at the bar last night." Her stomach tightened. She immediately called him back. After some hesitation, Lucas revealed the truth that left her reeling. The previous night, after leaving the restaurant, Nathan had gone to a bar with his friends. While drinking, Evan had been teasing him about the upcoming wedding, questioning if he was really ready to settle down. And then, in front of everyone, Nathan had laughed and said, "Oh, if Emma were better in bed, maybe I'd actually be excited about the wedding." That sentence felt like a knife, stabbing straight into Emma's heart. The man she had loved for years, the one who once looked at her with admiration, had now reduced her to nothing more than a cruel joke in front of his friends, as if their love meant nothing. She sat frozen in her car, tears streaming down her face. The excuse that he had been drunk couldn't erase the reality. Nathan had openly disrespected her, turning her into the punchline of his drunken bravado. That night, when she got home, she didn't say a word. Nathan was already passed out on the couch, the smell of alcohol heavy in the air. Emma silently picked up Mochi, took him into the bedroom, and locked the door behind her. She didn't know if she could continue this relationship. But one thing was certain, this was not the kind of love she deserved. The next morning, Emma woke up with swollen eyes and an empty feeling in her chest. Sleep had evaded her, leaving her pacing around the room, replaying Nathan's words from the bar over and over in her mind. She wanted to believe it was just a careless drunken remark. But how could she dismiss something so cruel when it came from the man she had spent 5 years building a future with? As she struggled with her thoughts, her phone suddenly rang. She glanced at the screen and saw Margaret, Nathan's mother. They had always shared a warm relationship. In some ways, Emma felt closer to her than to her own mother. But this morning, Margaret's voice trembled with urgency and worry. "Emma, can we meet? I need to talk to you about Nathan. There's something important you need to know." Emma sat in silence for a moment, a growing unease spreading through her chest. Nathan had called his mother last night, but to say what? What did Margaret know that she didn't? After a few seconds of hesitation, she agreed to meet her at a cafe near her apartment. When Emma arrived, Margaret was already sitting in a secluded corner. She looked more worn down than usual, her eyes red and puffy, as if she had been crying. The moment Emma sat down, Margaret reached for her hand, her expression filled with sorrow and regret. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I never wanted you to find out this way, but I can't stay silent and watch you get hurt." Emma's heart pounded in her chest. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Margaret took a deep breath before speaking slowly. "Nathan, he has feelings for someone else. It's not a real relationship, but there's a woman he's been drawn to recently." Emma's world crumbled around her. She had suspected it for a while, but hearing it confirmed from Margaret of all people, made it impossible for her to keep lying to herself. "Who?" she whispered, her throat tightening. Margaret hesitated for a moment before finally saying the name. Maria, the new girl at his company. Emma felt as if the ground had been pulled from beneath her feet. Maria, the name Nathan had mentioned casually in passing. Someone Emma had never thought twice about, because she never believed he could waver. But now, every moment of distance, every ounce of hesitation she had felt from him, all traced back to this. She left the cafe in a daze, struggling to process Margaret's words. Nathan has feelings for Maria. The phrase echoed in her mind, stirring a storm of emotions: anger, betrayal, confusion, each colliding with the other in a way that made it impossible to breathe. As she drove home, her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Emma, this is Maria. I know you've heard, but there are things you need to know from me. Can we talk?" Emma stared at the screen. Her first instinct was to ignore it, to block the number and refuse to hear anything Maria had to say. But another part of her, the part that refused to be left in the dark any longer, needed the truth. The next day, Emma arrived at the cafe Maria had suggested, getting there a few minutes early to compose herself. When Maria walked in, Emma immediately recognized her, a woman with her hair tied up in a simple ponytail, her appearance understated, lacking the calculated elegance Emma had expected. There was nothing about her that resembled the cunning other woman Emma had envisioned in her mind. Maria sat down, visibly tense. She hesitated before speaking. "Emma, I'm sorry for everything you're going through, but you need to know, I never intended to come between you two." Emma crossed her arms, her voice cold. "But Nathan has feelings for you." Maria nodded slowly. "That's not something I wanted. I never saw him that way. I've been with my boyfriend for years, and Nathan knows that. But lately, I noticed he started paying more attention to me, texting me about things unrelated to work. I tried to keep my distance, but it felt like he was looking for a way out of the wedding." Emma clenched her fists, the weight of realization crashing over her. She thought back to the nights Nathan had come home late, the cryptic messages he had received at odd hours. Now everything made sense. Maria had never tried to interfere, but Nathan had created the distance between them himself, chasing a feeling he wasn't even brave enough to acknowledge. Before leaving, Maria said something that Emma would never forget. "I'm not the problem. Nathan is. If it wasn't me, it would have been someone else." The words hit Emma like a slap. For the first time she saw it clearly. Maria wasn't the reason their relationship had fallen apart. Nathan was. He had been the one to destroy everything. After meeting Maria, Emma felt both lighter and heavier at the same time. There was no more doubt, no more questioning herself. She had lost to no one. The problem had never been another woman. It had been Nathan all along, and now she needed to face him one last time. Karina, Nathan's younger sister, was the one who arranged a family meeting. She had always adored Emma like an older sister, and when she learned the truth, she refused to stay silent. The meeting took place at her apartment, with Emma, Nathan, Margaret, and even Evan, the so-called friend, who had planted so many doubts in Nathan's mind. The tension in the room was suffocating. Nathan looked exhausted, unkempt, dark circles shadowing his tired eyes. When Emma walked in, he stood up as if to say something, but she simply shook her head. Margaret was the first to speak. "Nathan, I want you to be honest. No more excuses. No more dodging the truth. What have you done? What have you been thinking?" Nathan let out a long sigh, his head hanging low as he spoke in a quiet, strained voice. "I was wrong. I let fear control me. I let Evan get inside my head, and I pushed Emma away." Emma gave a small, bitter laugh. "No one forced you to do that, Nathan. You made that choice yourself." Evan suddenly scoffed, his voice laced with irritation. "Oh, come on. Are we all just going to pretend we don't get it? Marriage is a trap. I was just trying to help Nathan think before he threw his life away." Karina turned to Evan, her eyes flashing with a rare anger. You didn't help him. You just projected your own fears onto him and made him doubt something he should have been sure about." Nathan said nothing, only bowing his head in silence. Emma looked at him, and for the first time she didn't feel anger anymore. All that remained was regret. Regret for the love she had poured into this relationship, only to realize that Nathan had never been strong enough to fight for it. "We can't do this anymore." Emma's voice was steady, unwavering. "We can't get married, and honestly, I don't think we can even stay together." Nathan looked up, his eyes red, his voice barely above a whisper. "Emma, I still love you." She gave him a sad, knowing smile and shook her head. Sometimes love isn't enough. No one spoke. The truth lay bare between them, undeniable and final. After 5 years together, their relationship didn't end with a screaming match or a dramatic exit. It ended with the quiet realization that they no longer belonged to each other. After the tense family meeting, Emma walked away without looking back. She didn't cry. She didn't feel angry. She only felt empty. But within that emptiness, there was also a quiet sense of relief, as if she had finally put down a weight she had been carrying for far too long. She started spending more time with Lena, joining a yoga class she had never made time for before. She also began therapy, not just to move past the breakup, but to learn how to set boundaries and to never lose herself in a relationship again. Nathan's mother and Karina continued to keep in touch with Emma. They never sided with Nathan, but instead remained supportive of her, still treating her as part of their family. It was a gesture that touched her deeply and reminded her that she hadn't lost everything. She had only lost one person, and that person was no longer worthy of being in her life. One day, while cleaning out her closet, Emma found the small box containing her engagement ring. She opened it, watching as the diamond caught the light. A part of her wanted to throw it away, to rid herself of its weight. Another part considered keeping it, not as a symbol of love, but as a reminder of how far she had come. In the end, she simply closed the box and placed it in a drawer. She didn't have to decide what to do with it right now. She was still healing. And this time, the journey was hers alone. True love doesn't stem from hesitation or fear. It requires certainty and commitment from both sides. If someone cannot choose you wholeheartedly, have the courage to walk away. Your worth is not defined by whether someone appreciates you or not. When a person makes you feel like you're not enough, the problem isn't with you, it's with them. Love should never be a test of your self-worth. The right person will never make you question your place in their life. Emma's story is proof that a breakup is not a failure. It's an opportunity to rediscover yourself. Sometimes, letting go of the wrong person is the only way to create space for a life where you don't have to fight to be loved, where you can love yourself fully without compromise. If you enjoy deep, emotional, and meaningful stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new update. Your support is the motivation that drives us to keep bringing you powerful stories. Once again, thank you for being here, and see you in the next story.